Hey Void, how you doing? So, finally catching back up to at least where I can get back to my regularly scheduled backlog. But here we go. So, been watching a lot of movies that I've been meaning to see again for some time. Kind of an excuse to just watch through things I keep putting off, revisiting. Mostly ones I have fond memories of. Last one was one that I didn't have such fine memories of, but this one, this one I keep remember liking, but I always have in the back of my mind, was it really as enjoyable as I recall it being? Was it really as clever? I keep not being sure. Usually it's one of those things where it's like, in one movie I'm not sure if it's going to hold up. And that is Crywolf. It is an interesting little film. It does have the dubious honor of being the first PG-13 slasher film. That said, the unrated version essentially restores everything that stopped it from being an R rating back to an R rating. But if there was one that was going to be PG-13, technically I could be okay with this one being it because part of the movie actually makes sense with that. This one has a couple twists that make you... that I'm not sure if I should spoil or not because without them the movie does lack a bit of a punch. But let's go with what we can go with. So, in this one, it's our lead, who, admittedly, whose name I've already forgotten. He's just transferred into the school. This prestigious prep school, and apparently he keeps getting shuffled around schools. So, he's here, and the first, then... can't find anyone at the school, which is a little odd, until he encounters Dodger, whose name I will never forget because you rarely see a lady named Dodger. Well, here we go. So, actually, do I have his name? Owen. Owen's our lead. That's right. His roommate keeps calling him O-Dog. So, let's see. Oh... Right, so. Lost complete train of thought. Of course, trying to find a name always does that. Alright, I should really take better notes. People have pointed that out. I'm going to be getting better at that. Promise. Okay, so Owen just transfers into school. He meets Dodger, who informs him that there's been a murder, who just happened to then take place just before he arrived. A town girl was found, well, dead. So, she gets him introduced to the school very briefly before just disappearing. He goes to meet his roommate, played by Tom, played by Jared Padalecki. I think it's the second time he popped up this month. And I'm always surprised to see him. It's one of those actors that I keep forgetting is in things other than Supernatural. Well, anyway, he's his roommate who very classily introduces himself, but also takes Owen to the game, which is pretty much a mafia-style lying game that the rich people play just to pass the time. Well, he then, despite being on double secret probation, our boy Owen goes along with it because girl pretty. And because girl pretty, he's going to sneak out and try to impress her. And a lot of this movie happens because girl pretty. So, he has a distinct thing for Dodger, and that's going to come back time and again throughout this one. Wow. So, well, then after this game, where Owen pretty much cleans house, then Dodger decides that, you're right, Owen's right, this game is played out. Let's play a new game, and let's play with the whole school. Their game is essentially they make it seem like the killer, who killed the townie girl, is not done, and they pretty much craft a serial killer legend, give him a pattern, and then pretty much blast email it to the school to freak everybody out. and then essentially try to manipulate and play with the school. Well, that is okay until the journalism teacher does call out Owen for, yeah, this is obviously you doing this. Not cool. But he agrees not to pass it along. But then Owen's friends mysteriously start disappearing. And strange things start happening, like his broom gets ransacked. A knife appears in his bag. A lot of strange things begin happening. So, is the killer the real killer? Because someone did kill that girl. Has he seen the email and is now coming for Owen and his friends? Or is his friends just messing with him? And so begins the cat and mouse, or sheep and wolf, game. Now, this hard to talk about without going into spoilers here. But there are some twists. I won't go into them because this movie, like I said, lacks a lot of its bite without them. But it twists a couple times, and the first one you can kind of see coming a little bit. But how it wraps up at the end, yeah, it's convoluted and a bit over the top, but it kind of works for this movie. I was also wondering how well this would hold up because of the whole instant messenger aspect, because this is pretty much almost like an ad for AOL Instant Messenger. But it doesn't actually do too bad on that. It's as much as they do use it, it isn't as in their face as I remembered it being. But like, it's only had like a whole big ad campaign around it based around that. Overall, this movie's fine. The gore effects are decent, but they're not standout-ish. The characters are fairly memorable, as far as a generic slasher goes, particularly Dodger and Owen. Some of the others that are with them, 50-50, but Jared Padalecki also does a good job at least being fairly distinct. So, it's an interesting group of kids getting with a decent back and forth of what is really going on. Especially since all the characters keep lying to each other so much and trying to psych out and fool people that you're not sure who's being killed, when they're being killed, if they're being killed, and who's behind it all. By the end, it does pretty much come together nicely, all explained. But yeah, it's more than a little convoluted, but I'm okay with that. For me, it's still pretty straightforward. I'll give it a 5 MacGuffins. My memory would have given it probably a 6 MacGuffins just because of how clever it thinks it is, but it's not that much smarter than your average slasher, so give it an average. If I didn't state it before, this was 2005, and I actually remembered seeing this one in theaters back then. Which, probably good that I actually got out the rated, because I think a lot of the gore things were cut out, which, there's not a lot of them, but they do add something. Alright, that's about all I got on Cry Wolf. Cry_Wolf. However that's supposed to be written. But, all for this one, and when in doubt, be careful if you're doing something just because girl pretty. You may end up shooting someone. Word to the wise. Okay. See you later, Void.